All right, so Mike White looked pretty good yesterday, albeit against a banged-up Bears defense and a secondary that's been ravaged with injuries over the past couple of weeks. Eddie Jackson went out yesterday's game as well, too. And
it's still been a top 10 defense, though.
Yeah, but
at least pass defense.
And Brisker was out. They were just dealing with some stuff there. And look, I mean, they traded away their two best defensive players, and kind of just is what it is. And Mike White looked pretty good yesterday. So here's my question. Now what? Because Zach Wilson's sitting over there.
Now what?
In street clothes, just kind of hanging out, watching all this, and it sure looked like they were pretty excited to have Mike White out there. I don't know.
The players, right?
Yes.
The players were super pumped up, too.
Everybody seemed really happy about it. So now what do you do? Like what's the plan with Zach Wilson and with Mike White in this quarterback situation
Coach
the rest
Salah
of the year?
said there wasn't the nail in the coffin for Zach Wilson. But he didn't say he wasn't in a coffin. He said it wasn't the nail in his coffin. Go ahead, Q. You can jump on it from there. I just figured I'd just set the table real quick.
Yeah, I was going to say, so is he in the coffin? They just haven't put the nail to close it? Is that what you meant?
I'm just saying. He said it's not the nail in his coffin.
Dead man
walking. I'm just saying.
I thought the offense had such a different feel to it. And going into it, Eddie Jackson got injured during the game. And, yes, they dealt with some injuries, but this is still a good pass defense. I mean, they have been all year. Maybe you can make the case that it's because they're so bad against the run. That's why no one throws against them, because they can't stop anyone. But it doesn't matter. I mean, think about this. I mean, Mike White's had, basically a week to prepare? I mean, that was essentially what he was given in order to prepare for this game. And he looked night and day better. And you saw what this roster now is capable of with Elijah Moore now being part of the passing attack, with Garrett Wilson passing downfield, not the kind of dinking and dunking and kind of playing around Zach Wilson, who just hasn't grown to the maturity level of being able to play at the NFL level. Where you have to work past your first read. You have to understand what the defense is trying to take away from you and what they're trying to accomplish. So it just had a different feel for it. I mean, Mike White, obviously, from his time way back when he was in college, was a prolific passer, played at Western Kentucky. They air things out, so there's no questions about whether or not he could sling it. And since he's gotten in the NFL, he's displayed that from time to time. But it's going to be a matter for him, I think, of consistency. Can he follow this up now with the rest of their schedule? Because, he looked great, and it's one game. I don't want to make too much of one game. But it did have such a different feel to the way they moved the ball, from the way he passed from the pocket, from the way he threw while stepping up and moving within the pocket. Like I guess I'll be blunt. He looked like an NFL quarterback. Like that was the difference. Is this didn't look like a guy who was confused, scrambling around, trying to make a play because he can't, see or he doesn't understand where he's trying to go with the football. Mike White was decisive. He was accurate, and he's going to give the Jets a shot at being a playoff team because of that style of play, if he can maintain it. And that's the biggest question.
Q, were you an analyst when you played the game? Like, were you in the locker room like, oh, this guy's a good guy, this guy can play, these are the strengths he had? Like, you ever found yourself like doing analytical work like while as a player?
Dude, I had notes on everyone.
Right.
I took notes. I had notes that I used from college on guys in the NFL.
Exactly. So even on your own team, correct?
Everyone.
Right.
Like, bro, it could be anyone and guys I worked out with training for the combine. I talk about their hips, how they get in and out of cuts, their change of direction, their ball skills, because I'm watching them practice and all of that.
Yeah, the ball skills. Hey, so here's the point I'm making, right? Players are sometimes revered and respected for what they know by the coaching staff, and sometimes they're not. Now, you can look at the situation turning out the way that it's starting to kind of unfold in Denver and be like, dang, you just had a defender come off of the field and go nose to nose with the starting quarterback, and who knows what he said to Russ in that moment, but we know it wasn't good. Right? Mm-hmm. Or you could listen to guys that are in your locker room. We don't know what Mike White was doing in practices, as you mentioned, it's like he had a weekend to get ready. But you know what? Who saw him throwing the ball? You know who probably was analyzing and saying, man, we're a better team? Because I thought it was a little curious. Why you not go with Flacco? You went with Mike White. Here's what I'm thinking. You not only benched, because we had the conversation, they probably benched Zach Wilson because you do not want to lose your locker room. You don't want to be in a situation where you have a team that's on the cusp of being a pretty good team that's still in contention. You don't want to lose that. Well, now I'm listening. What am I hearing? Well, Zach Wilson, I'm sure we can come to the conclusions of what guys felt about him after some of the things that he said or some of the things that you've seen and experienced watching him play. And then all of a sudden, Mike White becomes the starting quarterback, and you see visuals of the players hugging on him and laughing with him and smiling with him. I would suspect that somebody who Salah really respects in that locker room, or multiple guys, like, this is a guy that needs to be playing for us right now. And that probably was a conversation that ensued either between the head coach, the OC, the position coach, whatever it may have been. But Mike White was the guy, in my opinion, that this team said needed to be in for us to have an opportunity. And if that's the case, you ask what's next, I don't know how you can put Zach Wilson. How do you put him back in if Mike White is playing well or to a level where this team is much more competitive than what they were when Zach Wilson was starting?
The schedule down the stretch is a little bit dicey. He's got Minnesota and Buffalo on the road. Last time he played Buffalo was last year. He threw 4 interceptions, Mike White did. So you would look at that and go, well, maybe he'll come back down to earth at playing some better teams. But it just – the fact that Zach Wilson was inactive, they just said, all right, not only are you not going to play or not going to start, you're not even playing. We're just going to kind of have you there and you're just going to be watching. It just feels like the whole thing is headed down a direction where I don't know how it comes back to Zach Wilson and him being the starting quarterback there.
Take him out of his
uniform. Well, if he's not active, he can't come in and be the hero. I mean, it's going to take Mike White playing poorly for them to have to maybe turn back to him. But, I mean, Zach Wilson played pretty poorly for a pretty significant period of time to get you to this point. And LaVar, to your point, you know what it is? It's 100% watching probably Mike White on scout team.
Yeah.
It's 100% the defense watched this dude.
He's dicing us up.
And after Zach Wilson said what he said after the game, you're right. Defensive leaders probably came up to Robert Saleh, who's a defensive-minded coach. I am sure he's in those meetings more so, though, than he's in the offensive meetings. And I'm sure they're like, dude, are you watching the same film we are? Are you watching this, coach? Like, this is the dude we're seeing on Sundays, but this is the dude we see all week. This guy can help us win. Like, we're tired of going out there and selling out and not having a guy who's got our backs, who believes in us. Like, put this dude in. Give him a shot. And he dapped
him up. Say, I'm a
but I also think the other side of it is this can also be an opportunity for Zach Wilson to earn back some equity and some trust with the defense by how he prepares them as a part of a scout team quarterback.
Do the same thing that Mike White did.
He could do the same thing. He could start dicing them up, and if Mike White starts to struggle, then they say, okay, it's time. He's ready. Like, put him back in there. Because don't be mistaken, like, neither of the quarterbacks are going to carry this team. This Jets team is led by their defense. They're led by their ability to run the football. The stats and everything was great, but over the long haul of the rest of the season, it's still going to be those two things that have carried this team the entire season thus far. That and the fact they've played backup quarterbacks in 5 of their 11 games.